Hello, everybody. Today we've got another political shift. This time it's going to be for president between 2004 and 24. This is going to take us from the second term of George W. Bush through the second term of Donald Trump. A lot of political changes over these 20 years. If you want to just skip ahead to the map, there will be a chapter down below in the description. But first, if you want a quick refresher, let's put up some background information about the two elections we're going to take a look at. In 2004, George W. Bush won re-election with 286 electoral votes. He carried 31 states and he finished with 50.7% of the popular vote. John Kerry took the loss for the Democrats. He ended up with 251 electoral votes. He carried 19 states plus DC, and his popular vote share was 48.3. 5 elections later, we've got Donald Trump winning his second term with 312 electoral votes. He carried 31 states plus Maine second, and he won the popular vote with 49.8%. Kamala Harris finished with 226 electoral votes. She carried 19 states plus DC and Nebraska second, and her popular vote share was 48.3%. That's exactly the same as John Kerry in 2004. So this should be interesting. Let's head over to the spreadsheet. First, we've got the states. Then we've got the 2004 vote in each state for John Kerry. Then we've got the same thing for George W. Bush. Then it's going to be the 2024 vote for Kamala Harris. Then the 24 vote for Trump. Then we've got the shifts between those two elections for the Democrats. Then the same for the GOP. Finally, we've got the net change between the two parties between the two elections. There's also shading in this column. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. The lightest colors are going to be under 5%. So let's get started here in Alabama. In 2004, John Kerry got 36.8%. George W. Bush won the state with 62.5. 20 years later, Kamala Harris sank down to 34.1. Donald Trump bumped it up to 64.6. That's a loss of 2.7 for the Dems, a gain of 2.1 for the Republicans, and a total net shift of 4.8% away from the Democrats and toward the Republicans. So that's how this works. Now we can quickly go through the rest of these states. Alaska had double-digit movement toward the Dems by 12.5. Arizona had similar movement as Alabama, but in the opposite direction. It got 4.9% bluer. Arkansas had massive red movement of 20.9. California in 2004 had almost the exact same margin as Arkansas, but again in the opposite direction. Since then, it shifted bluer by 10.3. Colorado got even bluer than California. That was by 15.7. Connecticut a little bit bluer by 4.2. Delaware a little bluer than that by 7.1. Florida had a solid red shift of 8.1. Georgia and Hawaii both had the exact same shifts, a significant 14.4 toward the Dems. Idaho's a red state but got just a little bit bluer by 1.6. Illinois even less blue by 0.6. Indiana slightly bluer than that by 1.7. Iowa was close in 2004. Since then, it had a big lurch toward the right by 12.5. Kansas is a state that went to the left by 9.2. Kentucky had movement toward the Republicans by 10.7. Louisiana, same direction by 7.5. Maine also in that direction by a smaller 2.1. Maryland is a blue state, but it got a lot bluer by 15.5. Massachusetts was almost totally stagnant, just 0.1% toward the Dems. Michigan a step toward the GOP by 4.8. Minnesota slightly bluer by 0.7. Mississippi a little redder by 3.3. Missouri double-digit movement toward the right by 11.2. Montana another 0.6% toward the Dems. Nebraska got a lot bluer than that by 12.6. Nevada voted similarly in 2004 and 24, just a 0.5% toward the GOP. New Hampshire slightly bluer by 1.6. New Jersey slightly redder by 0.8. New Mexico was won by George W. Bush in 2004. Since then, it clearly got bluer by 6.7. New York went the other way, 5.7 toward the right. North Carolina, a lot of movement there toward the left by 9.2. Now we've got a few red shifts. We've got North Dakota 9.1, Ohio 8.9, and Oklahoma 3.1. Oregon decided to go double digits toward the other side. That's by 10.1. Pennsylvania a little redder by 4.2. Rhode Island also redder by 7. South Carolina by 0.7, and South Dakota by 7.7. That's a lot of sevens. Tennessee had significant red movement by 15.4. Now we've got some blue shifts. We've got Texas at 9.2. Utah had the biggest shift down here toward the Dems by 24.3. Vermont 11.4. Virginia was won by Bush in 2004, but that moved 13.4 toward the Dems, and also Washington by an even 11. West Virginia had the biggest movement out of all the states. That's a colossal 29 points toward the Republicans. Wisconsin, just a little bit of rightward movement there by 1.3. And Wyoming is the last state that got redder by 6%. And we've got Washington, D.C. on here. They got bluer by 3.9. And there's your national shift. Again, the Democrats, the exact same percentage in 04 and 24. But aside from that, the Republican vote share went down by 0.9%. So that results in a small blue shift in the popular vote. So those are all of the states and all of the shifts. Now, if you want to help visualize this data, we could take it all, we could put it on a map. If we do that, this is what it looks like. And we've got similar shading here. The darkest colors are going to be 10 or more points. This time, the very lightest colors are going to be under 1% shifts. Those are going to be the tilt margins. So we've got 4 levels of shading in total. So what are the takeaways from any of these shifts? Well, right off the bat, it kind of looks like these states are just colored in randomly. There's really no clear pattern. A bunch of red states got redder, others got bluer, and a bunch of blue states got bluer, and others got redder. I think the easiest way to look at this, given we're spanning 6 elections and 20 years in total, this should start to show you a little bit more of a long-term political alignment. We've got Alaska and the West Coast getting bluer, plus Utah through Nebraska, and then Georgia and North Carolina in the Sun Belt. Republicans' more notable gains are going to be in the Rust Belt in the Midwest around Illinois, partly up into the Northeast with New York and New Jersey. However, the key thing to keep in mind here is some of these shifts don't really matter at all. If a blue state like California got way bluer, same thing with the super red states getting even redder. On the other side, there's some states that are moving in the opposite direction, sometimes by significant margins. For example, you've got Utah or Rhode Island. But those shifts also don't really matter much because even though they're headed in the direction of being competitive, they're still so dark red and blue that it still doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is which states actually shifted enough to start to become potentially competitive. I'd say those are going to be within single-digit margins on a presidential level. That's where you're looking at the swing states. We've got the Rust Belt, Nevada, Arizona, plus Georgia and North Carolina. 4 of those are headed toward the Republicans. The other 3, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, are moving toward the Dems. Doesn't mean it's going to continue in the future, but over this 20 years, those are the directions those states are moving. Back in 2004, it would not have seemed like those are going to be the major battlegrounds, but that's where we're at today. States like Nevada and Massachusetts, they're voting almost identical to where they were back in 2004. Other states moved by just a few points, but it really doesn't make a dent in the overall picture. Even a state like Texas, which Democrats were hoping would have long been competitive, if not blue, by 2024, that did not pan out at all. Even though it did swing about 9 points in their direction, it's still just not considered a battleground state. A part of a shift like that could be because George W. Bush was obviously from Texas. He likely got a big bounce in that state. But then again, John Edwards was the running mate of John Kerry. He's from North Carolina. And Bush won that state by a massive double-digit margin. So sometimes some of this stuff matters, sometimes it doesn't. I don't necessarily think this is a great way to predict anything for the future. It's mostly looking at everything after the fact and seeing where the movement was. So there's some neat stuff on here, but this is definitely a scattered map. You might be able to find some more takeaways on here or have some reasons for why some of these states moved in the directions that they did. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the shifts in any of these states? How about Iowa getting a lot redder? How about Indiana getting a little bit bluer? What about Alaska, Minnesota, or Connecticut? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.